to the Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast presented by Manly Vans. Josh All, your host today, and I've got Tom Moore, staff writer from dogsbynature.com, joining me on the episode today, and we are going to be talking a lot of stuff about the Browns, but primarily we're going to pick his brain on the new Dome Stadium project in Brook Park. Tom was introduced to me as kind of the stadium guru for Dawgs by Nature, and from what he tells me, kind of just fell into that position, but you took it and ran with it, and now you're the guy with all the knowledge on this new project. So, Tom, how you doing today?
All right, thanks for having me on. Hopefully, we'll have a good talk here. I'll try not to put too much personal opinion behind what, and mostly keep with the facts.
Well, we're going to want a little opinion, but definitely the facts as well. So before we dive into it, though, I do need to remind everybody that if you guys are looking to play fantasy football with us, I got to keep plugging this. Head over to jointhedawgs.com, sign up on the Patreon page, get in there, play fantasy, all that fun stuff, and make sure that you're following us on all the socials at the Dawgs Podcast, and go check out dogsbynature.com and everything that Tom's doing over there, including the stadium stuff. So I think let's kind of kick off with the most recent news. I guess would be this most recent lawsuit that was filed on this past Monday, correct?
Mm-hmm. The one about the funding.
Yeah. Can you kind of explain that to us?
Yeah, that's there's two former state legislators who are claiming. So we'll back up for a second. So the state has pledged that they're going to contribute $600 million to the new stadium project. And Governor DeWine, I thought he actually came up with a really good idea to create. The state's creating this stadium fund. So when other pro teams come to the state, like the Bengals, the Cavs, Guardians, whoever, and say, we need money for stadiums, the state will have a pot of money already funded to help those people. And the one, I can't remember if it was the House or the state legislator, or which side of the state legislating body, one of them wanted to do the traditional municipal bonds, but DeWine wanted to actually increase the tax on the companies that run all the gambling apps in sports gambling apps, which actually to me sounded like a good idea. Those companies, they don't employ anybody in the state of Ohio. They don't do anything. So pulling money from them to fund this account that then would go to the team seemed to make sense. But that's not what happened. But the state did come through, and they're going to use the $600 million they're going to contribute to the Browns is going to come from the unclaimed funds account, which the state runs. It's it's a little bit complicated. People forget that they have money. I don't know how they forget they have money, but you might forget you have money in a bank account that you closed years ago, or you got a refund, you didn't get something. So that money sits somewhere, and after a certain amount of time, it transfers over to the state. Now, you can go online, you can check to see if you have any money, you can get that money back. But after 10 years, that money now going forward is going to be transferred into this stadium fund for the state of Ohio to use to help pro teams when they want to renovate, build a new stadium, whatever it is they want to do. So now the new lawsuit is there's two former state legislators. They're saying this is unconstitutional. You should not do this. Why are you taking the people's money? So they filed a civil lawsuit to try to stop the state from doing that. Whether that's going to work or not, who knows? It's, sometimes you think some of this stuff is probably a little bit of a PR move, but I guess on the one hand, it's nice to know that somebody is out there trying to look after, the money of the people from the state. But I'm thinking there's a high likelihood that up until a few weeks ago, or when this first came out, a large majority of people in the state had no idea this fund even existed. So the fact that they're taking money from hardworking people, that's a little bit of a PR narrative spin that the one side's kind of putting on it. So
gotcha. So that's a myth essentially, because basically unless I missed something in there, what you just told me was this is essentially money that not only did people not know this fund existed, they didn't even know they had lost this money in years past.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, so yeah, it is our money, but it's, I just don't know. I don't know that it's this big, the way it's being portrayed, that it's somehow, hurting the little guy, the little person. I'm not sure that's 100% true. And even if it is, not to get overly political, but that's just kind of the way the world works now.
Yeah, I know. I see a lot of people in comment sections and stuff saying, I don't want my hard-earned tax dollars going to these stupid stadium projects, blah, blah, blah. And I keep trying to remind people that you don't really get a say in where most of your tax dollars go anyway.
Mm-hmm. And even if you don't support the team, I mean, if you drive I live in Summit County, if I go right across the border into Cuyahoga County, I go to a restaurant, I go to a bar, I'm getting taxed on the sin tax anyways. So if you're buying something in Cuyahoga County, you're getting taxed, and that goes to contribute to the money, that all three sports teams are using. So yeah, it would be, in a perfect world, if you're an owner of a sports team and you want a new stadium, God bless you, you pay for it yourself 100%. But unfortunately, that's just not the way things work anymore, or if they ever did.
No, correct. And then as I understand it, Jimmy Haslam is fronting more of his own money for this stadium than any other owner has before. Is that correct?
I want to say that that's probably correct. I know it's a 50-50 public-private. So 1.2 billion public, 1.2 billion private. So they're responsible for the 1.2 billion in the private funding. And also, I know there's some safeguards in there if there's cost overruns, because there's no way they're building this thing for 2.4 billion. There's always going to be cost overruns, because the longer you wait, everything is just going to get more expensive. The steel is going to get more expensive. Everything's going to be more expensive. So if I'm remembering correctly, there are some safeguards written in there that they, one, they have to pay the $600 million back to the state through the revenue that the project creates. And also, if there are cost overruns, they can't come back and say, we need more money. They're responsible for it.
Gotcha. Okay. So if it ends up being 2.6 billion, they're responsible for that extra, 0.2 over the 2.4.
As far as I know. Correct.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. And that's good information to know, because again, people don't take a whole lot of time, I think, sometimes to research this type of stuff and understand it. And like you said, there's all these misperceptions about a lot of the stuff going on with the stadium.
Right. And it's
what's
an emotional
the current
thing
situation? Too. Yeah, for sure.
And, if you don't look past the headline, it's sometimes it's easy just to, and it's a lot of details that the average person doesn't want to be, not everybody's on board. Like we were joking before we came on air, not everyone gets excited by stories about municipal bonds and infrastructure and things like that. So I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you before we started, I mean, following the nitty-gritty details of this whole thing for the last year plus, or however long it's been now, I haven't had that desire and interest to go, nitpick the details. So that's why I wanted to get you on here to help break some of this down for everybody. What's the current status of this Art Modell law?
That's an interesting one too, because I know that's what the city of Cleveland is kind of like hung its last gasp on. Is the Modell law is if you're playing in a publicly funded stadium, you have to give notice that you're leaving, you have to give an opportunity to sell the team, all these different things. But when Governor DeWine signed the latest state budget, there was language in there that updated the Modell law, and to me, I think it just made it more of a common sense and really what it was intended to. It was intended to protect cities if a team moved out of the state. The Browns are not moving out of the state. They're not even moving out of the county. They're just moving 13 miles down the road.
Right.
So that's what they kind of like just re-upped the language to say you have to, it's as long as you're not leaving the state and as long as you're obligated, you're fulfilling your lease, which the Browns are intending to do. Their lease expires at the end of the 2028 season. They're not going to try to break it. They have to play somewhere for the next 3 years while this thing gets built. So they're just going to stay there. And I don't think that was ever going to stop them from doing what they were going to do. But I just think this was an actual common sense way of saying, no, look, I know this is what people are interpreting, but this is what it really means. And to sit there and say, you can't leave the city of Cleveland after your lease expires, but you're staying in the county. I mean, come on, you have to have a little bit of common sense here. And yes, it's going to hurt certain parts of downtown, but I'm not sure the city of Cleveland, I've lived here my entire life for the most part. And Cleveland has always been this weird thing where what's good for Cleveland is good for Northeast Ohio, but they never look at it the other way. What's good for Northeast Ohio is good for Cleveland. And I think sometimes that holds the city back. And I think that kind of, because not everyone goes into downtown Cleveland, but you go out and you spend your money throughout the county or you spend it somewhere else, you're still generating money. And I think if we just look at it more as what's going to benefit the entire region, is a way to, it's a better way to look at it than just like this must go on in downtown Cleveland and, everybody will come on board. Because nobody from the city of Cleveland, I was looking, I think it's something like 15% of fans in the city of Cleveland actually go to games. And it's only like 30 some percent in Cuyahoga County as well. So this is a regional team. We all know that. So I think I've lost my train of thought, but yeah. So I think the Modell law,
okay.
I just think they put some better clarity around it. And I just can't imagine, I mean, anything's possible, but you can't really see a scenario where they're going to be, the Haslams are going to be held to, no, you cannot do this.
Right. Yeah, and going to, what you were saying about hurting downtown, that's another big argument we see a ton is that, this is going to kill the downtown, economy and all this kind of stuff. And our pushback to people is always, well, it's 8 Sundays a year. It's 8 home games a year versus, okay, so now you're, like you just said, you're 13 miles out of the city. Like you're not that far away, but now you've got opportunities to bring events to this region year round. It's not just a big giant facility that gets utilized 8 times a year, which is almost kind of worthless if you think about it. What is that really doing for the region where now we're going to be able to not just have our home games there for football season, but now we can do NCAA tournament, we can do basketball things, we can do wrestling things, we can do like monster truck things, they can do concerts and all kinds of different conferences and conventions and things like the possibilities are endless with what they can use this facility to bring into this area.
That's another one that that's an angle that I'm not super sold on because we already have those events coming, to Cleveland as it is. I was reading something the other day where somebody said, oh, we're going to be able to get concerts now. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I grew up here. I know we've had concerts here because I've gone to them. And this is one of the bigger myths too, that I think more people are catching on to. Whenever a group proposes a project like this, they talk about all the economic benefits it's going to have. We're going to bring jobs. We're going to bring all this money. We're going to bring this. We're going to bring that. And people are starting to figure out, and more studies are coming out, that it's really just shifting money from one part of town to the other. And, I kind of look at it, there were concerts going on at Rocket Mortgage or whatever the field house is called nowadays. They might, if they go over to Brook Park, we're not getting any new concerts. They're just getting shifted over. And that money is going to stay in one very specific pocket because all the infrastructure on the new stadium is going to be owned by one specific person. So that money's just going to stay there. If you're eating in a restaurant, you're parking, that's all going into the Haslam's pockets, where it gets spread a little bit more around. If you go into a Guardians game, you go into a concert, you go into a Cavs game, it's all kind of spread around that. So, we'll see. I'm sure Cleveland will get one Super Bowl because the NFL will want to reward them for building a new stadium. But as we saw when the Cavs were in those finals 4 years in a row, the national media complained about having to come to Cleveland. And that was in the middle of June. Nobody wants to come to Cleveland in the middle of February. So they'll get their one Super Bowl, and that's probably going to be it. You might get a few other big events, but it'll be interesting to see if that actually does have the kind of impact that that some people seem to think it will.
That's an interesting, I guess I had not really thought about it in terms of shifting those events from one place just to another. That's a really good point. This episode is sponsored by Manly Bands. Hey, if you guys missed the 4th of July sale from Manly Bands, they are extending the sale right now. Get over to manlybands.com and take advantage of the 30% off site-wide sale. And if you use promo code CAMP25, CAMP25, you will get an extra $25 off that order. Manly Bands is men's wedding bands reimagined, unique, handcrafted, and badass. Plus, they've got chains, necklaces, bracelets. Plus, they've got other awesome manly things like the Woodsman hatchet you can buy. They've got barware stuff. They've got watches and earbuds, lighters, pocket knives, all kinds of manly things for men. So get over to manlybands.com right now. Take advantage of the 4th of July sale that is being extended right now, 30% off site-wide, and use promo code CAMP25 to get an extra $25 off your order. That's manlybands.com/dogs.
Since 1989, Mount Hope Fence has set the standard in outdoor living. From decks and railings to fences and patios, we've got you covered. Our lineup features top brands like TimberTech, AlumaGuard, Preferred Railing, and Unilock, along with our own premium Duralux vinyl products. For over 30 years, we've partnered with contractors ensuring reliable job site delivery. Discover quality and excellence in all things outdoors with Mount Hope Fence.
Timeline-wise for the stadium project, when do they have like a proposed date when they plan to break ground on this whole project? Do you think, I guess what I'm really getting at here too, is do you think this entire project gets done and is ready for the kickoff of the 2029 NFL season?
I would think so, unless something like really like drastic happens. From the very beginning, the Haslams have talked about the milestones they had to hit, and the biggest one was they had to have the state funding by now so that they can start working to have the thing done. I want to say the latest that they can start, they were saying like early 2026, they really had to start, digging and doing the thing. But as soon as that $600 million got approved, they went out, they purchased all the land in Brook Park that they need. So that needs all that pre-work up there because they're going to have to repair the roads. They're going to have to get everything set up there. So I have a feeling it should, the surrounding parts, the restaurants, the hotels, the office space, that may not be ready, but I think, you're talking 26, 27, 28, you're talking 3 full years. They should be able to build, like I said, unless something like drastic were to happen, everything the team has come out and said is they're right on the timeline that they need to be on. So, plus you figured, the season doesn't kick off until September of 2029. So you're really talking like 3.5 years. They have the whole summer of 2029 to, make sure the toilets work, make sure that, the lights turn on, make sure they do all that stuff that, has to be done, all that little last minute stuff. So, and I'll have to think, because Nashville, like what Nashville and Buffalo's timeline is with their current stadiums. And I think 3.5 years sounds reasonable for someone who's not in the construction business.
Yeah, I know. With construction, it seems like things always end up going longer than what you planned, and it keeps getting pushed out further than expected. So I was just curious on that part. I know another thing people are worried about is playing on turf and things like that. Do you know, I guess I don't even know this. What do they have a plan? What kind of playing, turf are they going to have? Is it going to be grass and dirt somehow, or are they just going to use artificial? Because I think it's what Allegiant Stadium out in Vegas uses actual grass with dirt. Am I right? I think so.
Maybe. I know Arizona has that system where they grow the grass outside on the trees, but obviously their weather is a lot more conducive to growing grass probably in like October, November, December.
Yeah.
From what I've read, I can't say off the top of my head if I can remember exactly if they've gotten that deep into like what the field itself will actually be. You'd hope it would be something. I mean, it's certainly not going to be artificial turf like you used to see in the Astrodome or, in Philadelphia. Hopefully it'll be somewhere better than what used to be in the old municipal stadium, which was, dirt painted green.
Right.
But I haven't seen. And, it's talking about the old stadium, I was thinking about this too. It's, it's interesting because, like I said, growing up here, going to games there, even at the time, you knew it was a dump. The stadium was a dump, but it was kind of like our dump. And the new stadium, they had to build it quick. They had to build it cheap. There's nothing special about the new stadium. there's like no there. And like I said, I know I'm biased, but when you would go to the Browns games at the old stadium, there was just something special about seeing those orange helmets come out of the dugout prior to the game. And no matter how much smoke they shoot off, how many fake dogs they bring out, how many, flames they shoot off, it's just not the same at the new stadium. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, we have to be outside. We're going to miss this. We're going to miss that. But I just don't really know that there's just nothing fun or nostalgic. I don't think anybody, what's it been, 30 years since the old stadium was, I don't think 30 years from now, people are going to be pining for Huntington Bank Field, saying, oh, what a special experience it was. And part of that was because the Browns, for part of the time there, a lot of the time there, depending on when you grew up, they were winning, where they haven't been winning consistently in the new stadium. So I don't know that, how much people are going to be, like I said, looking fondly back at the old stadium if, for some reason the experience does not get better at the new one.
Yeah, I was up at a game last year and, we were tailgating in the parking lot across from the stadium there. And I remember we were just looking over at the outside of Huntington Bank Stadium, and it's just falling apart. Like it just looks terrible. It looks dingy. I'm like, I can't believe this is a professional NFL stadium. And I'm sure not all of them look, state of the art or anything like that. There's definitely some older stadiums in the league, but man, it just sitting on the lake, it's just peeling, falling apart, rusting. Like everything just looks bad.
It's tired. It's dated. They need to do something. And the reality is they can't, there's nowhere to build in downtown. There's nowhere, if they were going to redo a stadium from scratch, that's the spot they'd probably have to put it on. There's really nowhere else that you could put a brand new stadium. And as soon as, the past few years, the Browns have played, they've been to Indianapolis and seen their dome. They've been, obviously to Dallas a few times. They've been out in LA, saw SoFi. They were in Las Vegas and so, as an owner, if you're going to these other sites and you're seeing what's possible and what's out there, obviously you're going to want that. And either rebuilding or renovating the current stadium was probably not ever going to be feasible, even though the Haslams came out at first and just said, hey, we might be open to it, but you knew that they were never really going to be open to it. And honestly, we're going to get, I'm going to have to apologize. We're going to get a little bit serious here for a moment, then we'll go back to some fun. When they first talked about the possibility of renovating the stadium, the city of Cleveland said they would kick in $461 million to do that. But here's the reality about Cleveland. The city consistently ranks as the second poorest big city in the country. More than half its residents can't even afford the basics. And we're talking rent, food, utilities, childcare, medicine. We're not talking luxury apartments. We're not talking, multi-week vacations, yachts. We're talking like the basics. And you got a city that more than half the people can't do that. There are so many problems in this city that they have to deal with. If they have $461 million that they can give to a professional sports team owner lying around, there's a lot of other things they could be spending that money on. So I know Mayor Bibb, it doesn't look good. You don't want to be the mayor that lost the Browns, but you're not really losing them the way you lost them the last time. And I think that the city will be okay. Now you get in there, you tear down that stadium, and all of a sudden now you got an opportunity to build access to the lakefront that you don't have. That's the one thing. If you've ever been to Chicago and you see what they did with Navy Pier, people can get down there. There's public access. It's very limited, and it's always been, in Cleveland. This is a great opportunity for the city to say, okay, we know this kind of like sucks. We're going to admit it, but here we go. We're going to tear this thing down, and we're going to actually turn this into something that more people can use, and that can then actually be a benefit to the city versus, this thing that sits there empty. What are we, 350 some days out of the year.
No, I like that a lot. Go ahead.
Okay. And that's the serious part. We're done with that. So
no, I mean, and the comparison to Chicago is a good one, at least for me. And if anybody out there has ever been to Chicago and you've gone down to the pier, like you kind of know what Tom's talking about here. It's really cool the way they have the access to the lakefront and everything down there. So much to do, and it's become a destination spot in that city where Cleveland could kind of have that same sort of thing. It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've seen the videos, we've seen the renderings and everything that the Browns have been putting out to show everybody what they plan for this thing to look like. I guess my question for you then is, how close do you think the final stadium build, the development, the whole area of Brook Park that they put in the renderings, how close is it going to actually be to those renderings?
I would say you probably with the stadium, it'll probably be pretty close. They seem, they've been working. It's not like they just made this up, in the in-house, marketing team, these renderings. They've been working with, an outside company, and I'm sure that they have a clear, and that's the other thing too. This has probably been in the works for a while. They've been working on what this could possibly look like. And there's no doubt it's going to be cool. Especially the first time, if you get to go there, it's going to be a lot different than you've ever experienced football in Cleveland before. The other side of that nobody's really going to know until it gets there is, what's the ticket price it's going to be? Teams cater to the corporate audience. They cater to the high end people. And that's really what, these new stadiums are all about, is getting that. And you just have to wonder if the average fan is going to be able to afford a ticket, especially if the team starts winning. Obviously, if they're rolling through 4 and 13 seasons, those November, December games are going to be, you're going to be able to pick them up for, $10-15. But I did a little bit, I was looking at a little bit of research, and I found a story, and this is from looking at 2023. The league-wide average ticket price for that season was $121. In Las Vegas, which we just talked about, a new stadium, new dome stadium, the average ticket price there is almost $169. And the average cost for a family of 4 to go to an NFL team, this is league-wide, is $632. So how many people in the Cleveland metropolitan Northeast Ohio region? That's a big ask for a lot of people. And that's just the average. So obviously there's people below, but some of these tickets are going to be priced, they're going to be priced pretty high. And, it's going to be interesting to see who they can get in there. It's also going to be interesting to see, what kind of corporate money they can pull into this, because I think we've all seen the story that Cleveland's the smallest, city that has 3 major professional sports teams, and there's only so much corporate money to go around. So, the Guardians, Cavs, Browns, they're all going after that same money for advertising, for those suite rentals, for all that stuff. And it's, I guess, they're going to be the newest one, and it's going to, so obviously they're going to have the nicest stuff, but that's going to be, if it turns into an arms race, Dan Gilbert's not going to be shy about, doing what he has to do. I mean, they just opened up, or they just announced that, is it pronounced comms, that whatever that experience is that and that was originally going to be in Brook Park.
I saw that
in the original renderings. They were going to put that fan theater experience at the new outside as part of the new stadium, but obviously he talked them into keeping it downtown. So, the Dolans aren't going to be able to keep up, when it comes to the money race. But I don't think Gilbert has any problem with, now he's not printing money the way the NFL is, but he's certainly not hurting for money either.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point. I know ticket prices has been a big, point of contention with a lot of fans, like not going to be able to afford to go to games and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I feel like these things do have a way of somehow balancing themselves out, because at some point, you can't just have an empty stadium because your ticket prices are too high. I mean, these other NFL teams, the Rams, the Raiders, the Vikings, like these other new dome stadiums, they're able to get fans in there. So I think that it's pricey now if you want to take a family of 4 to an NFL game, even if it is just, at Huntington Bank, early in the season, it's going to be pricey usually. So we'll see how that goes, but it's an interesting thing to talk about. So out of the renderings, out of all the announcements, the features that the Browns have announced for this new stadium, what thing is your favorite? Like, what are you the most excited about for this new stadium?
I don't know if I'm excited about things. I think it's more, I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see how it comes out. and how everything looks. I guess the thing that it's not so much excitement, but it's more kind of like frustrated is the whole dog thing is, to me, I think it's played out. I was around when it became a thing and that became organic. And once it became a marketing tool, when it became corporate, it's just kind of like, okay, we get it. I know they're going to try to replicate it. But it'll be a nice experience. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I guess it'll depend on we'll have to wait and see what it looks like when it's there. Certainly cold weather days, it'll be nice for people to not have to sit out in the elements. I know a lot of people think that that's what football in Ohio is supposed to be about, but this team is not really, this home field advantage of being a cold weather team hasn't really been a thing for a long, long time. So if it ever really was. So I think that'll probably be okay. And it'll to be determined.
Yeah, the home field advantage thing, that never held any water with me, really. And then a couple years ago, when the New Orleans Saints, a Southern team who play in a dome, came up to Cleveland on the second coldest game in Cleveland Browns history. It was like 4 degrees and the wind chill was negative, whatever. They beat us. There was no home field advantage for the Browns in that situation. So it's just, that's just not the way it works.
If you're good, you build a home field advantage by being a good team. It doesn't matter if you're indoor, outdoor, whatever.
It's like the Packers, the Packers get this outdoor, home field advantage from the elements and everything because they're freaking good. They're always a good team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that didn't do them much good, in the 70s and the 80s when they were, not good. So you put a good team out there and everything else kind of takes care of itself. It's funny how that works out that way.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as 2029, when the stadium, this is going to be kind of maybe a silly off the wall question here. Mm-hmm. Will the quarterback who starts for the Browns in 2029 in that new stadium, is that quarterback currently on the Browns roster, do you think?
Probably not. Because we're talking, 4 years is a long time. And just look, if we were having this conversation in probably 2020, the answer would be yes. Because, we had the Browns had Baker Mayfield. And that went south. So, we could say, even if, let's step back. We know it's not going to be Joe Flacco. We can pretty much guarantee that. And I'd be willing to guarantee it's not going to be Kenny Pickett. Whether it's Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders, that's hard, that's a big ask because guys who get drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, they don't have long careers and they generally don't become starters. I know it's going to be exciting to see what they can do here in the preseason. So I'm going to say no. I think the quarterback for 2029 is he's still playing in college. And let's hope he's currently playing in college and not, because you don't want to have a rookie necessarily roll out there week 1 in 2029, but you never know.
Yeah, I guess it depends on who it is too, and
sure.
how the situation goes, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you can get Jaden Daniels, but boy, those guys are really hard to come by playing at that level as a rookie. Right. It's insane. This episode is sponsored by Butcher Box for Pets. Browns fans, we love our fellow dogs, our Dog Pack members, and the Dog Pound faithful, but let's not kid ourselves. The most important dogs in our lives are, our dogs. Your furry friends aren't just pets, they're part of the family. But the question is, what are you actually feeding them? Head to butcherbox4pets.com/products to see all the options for your dogs, including fresh and dry foods, treats, meal toppers, and even toys for your dog. If you're not sure what your dog will like best, try the Premium Nutrition Adult Starter Pack back, and they even have a vacation bundle to take care of your four-legged friends while you're on vacation this summer. And right now you can get 20% off your order with promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, when you check out. At ButcherBox, they believe in real ingredients. Their pet foods have been developed and certified by vet nutritionists to contain zero artificial flavors or preservatives. You get protein-packed formula with over 50% of the recipe comprised of third-party certified humane ButcherBox meat, plus functional ingredients like pre- and postbiotics to support your dog's vitality and digestion. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line is your dogs are getting the nutrition and the value they need, and honestly, that they deserve. I know our home wouldn't be the same without Odie, our 100-pound golden retriever who thinks he's a 10-pound lap dog. He is not, but it gives us peace of mind knowing that we're giving him quality food instead of just that factory processed garbage from the store. And speaking of the store, no need to go. ButcherBox for Pets delivers their high-quality food right to your door. So head to butcherboxforpets.com/products and use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 20% off your order. It's time for us dogs to give our dogs the nutrition they deserve. So obviously that's a few years down the road type of question, but let's come back to this year, 2025, week one. We'll talk to you here. Let's get your opinion on the quarterbacks. Who do you think starts week one? How do you think, basically, how do you think the season shakes out for the quarterback position?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to say it's either going to be Flacco or Pickett. They're going to start. I'm going to lean towards Flacco because even though he's 40, I think he's better than Pickett. I think he obviously has an edge because he knows the offense. I'm also not sold on this kind of like storyline that the Browns are so in love with Pickett because he was the first quarterback they got in the offseason. I just think, they gave up DTR and a 5th round pick. I don't think that really signals this huge love affair with Kenny Pickett. I do think getting away from Pittsburgh, he got a year of washing that stench off of him with the Eagles and kind of like was able to reset his mind a little bit from what was a bad situation. And that's the thing. The Browns get, and deservedly so, they get a lot of criticism and a lot of national publicity for being the place where quarterbacks go to die. But there are plenty of other teams out in the NFL that you can say the same thing about, and Pittsburgh's definitely one of them. They have no clue how to evaluate quarterbacks or get an offensive system that works. So I think what they're hoping the plan is, and I think this is probably a solid plan, is you pick one of the veterans as the starter. You luck into trading that other person away to a team that needs a quarterback. You don't want anybody to ever get hurt, but somebody finds themselves in a situation. So you name Flacco the starter, you trade Pickett, and then and there's no reason, I don't see any reason to not, unless somebody comes and bowls you over with this offer for Gabriel or Sanders, there's no harm in keeping 2 rookies on the roster this year. They're not winning this year. I mean, they're not intentionally losing, because they don't intentionally lose, but I don't know that they'll be upset if they lose this year because it'll help their draft pick. So I think what we're going to see in the preseason is very little of Flacco. You're going to see, that first preseason game, you'll probably see Pickett play maybe most of the first half. Then you'll see Gabriel in the third quarter, Sanders on the fourth. Then the second preseason game, they'll flip it. Pickett will play. Then that third preseason game, you might see Flacco for a series or 2, and then you'll just see all Gabriel and Sanders, and people are going to get excited because they're going to probably light it up against guys that are going to be out of the league 3 or 4 days after that. And then, the one thing I think they have going for them, I don't know that anyone's going to be, if they start the season with both rookies on the bench, I don't necessarily know that there's going to be a lot of people screaming and yelling about they have to get them in there. Why are they not doing this? Why are they not doing that? So they have a tough first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. You ride Flacco or Pickett as long as you realistically can till eventually they start to fall apart. And then you kind of see maybe the second half of the season, you put one or the other rookies in. The hard part, you can't put both of them in because you can't be like, okay, we're going to have a 4-game stretch with Gabriel and see what he does. Okay, you're benched, and we're going to have a 4-day stretch with Sanders. That's just going to be tough to do. So if they go with one, they're going to kind of have to go with one and ride them out as long as they possibly can. And it's going to be tough on the two of them, but and it's going to be tough on the coaching staff to evaluate, but that's part of why they're all being paid what they're being paid to do. They have to figure this out. And, I think they need to at least have some kind of realistic sense of what those two guys have as they prepare for next season. And having, you hope Jacksonville has a bad season. Everybody's kind of expecting the Browns to have a bad season. So if you're sitting there next April with picks 1 and 3, picks 2 and 4, you have a chance to fix whatever holes you need to fix. You just have to hope there's some quarterbacks that are going to be available. And from, early projections, it sounds like there should be some people that are going to be worth picking. Fingers crossed.
If that ends up being the way things go, and maybe that's even just the mindset of the front office and everything as well, we've got these 2 picks for next year. I think a lot of fans are going to be, I know a lot of fans already are upset about the 3rd round pick used on Dillon Gabriel, considering some of the other needs we had on the team and some of the other players that were on the board at the time. So I think that is also why I feel the Browns will be more compelled to give Gabriel that opportunity ahead of Shedeur Sanders, even though I think a lot of the fans are going to be pining to see Shedeur first on the field because he was touted as a 1st-round talent throughout the process and all this kind of stuff. So do you feel like the Browns got themselves into more of a mess than they needed to with this quarterback situation, or do you like them taking the multiple shots at the position?
I think it's fine. I mean, as long as, and they can't 100% control the narrative, but the reality is that Sanders is a 5th round player. I mean, he was selected in the 5th round. Everybody in the NFL came together and said, you know what? We're not going to pick this guy. There were plenty of teams that needed quarterbacks, and and I don't think he's a distraction. I know there was a lot of, stories coming out prior to the draft and I just think if you take away his last name, he's just another 5th round quarterback. And I really don't think there's going to be that huge of an outcry or any kind of like huge thing if he doesn't play this year, or he plays and he struggles. And the biggest check mark against Gabriel seems to be his height. I mean, he's experienced. He played at a high level. Everybody around here thinks the Big Ten is like the greatest thing in the frickin' world. And he went out and he lit it up last year. And, he's Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. He obviously must know something. If Ohio State fans are to be believed, and the Big Ten is this super powerful, conference that you have to have a monumental effort to succeed in, then he did it. He checked that box. The problem is he's just short. And, you know how we love our short quarterbacks around here. People lose their mind about stuff. The first time he gets a ball batted down, people are going to be screaming that he doesn't know. But here's the whole thing. I'm trying to make this analogy fit. I always think back to when the Browns had Kosar, and Kosar, when he had to run, he didn't look good to it, but he could move around the pocket as he needed to. But the thing is, it's not like he was a running quarterback. He wasn't Randall Cunningham. And then you get a knee injury, and all of a sudden you lose that aspect of your game, and you got to adjust. Kosar could never run, so he figured out a way to make it work. Gabriel has never been tall. It's not like he woke up the day after the draft and he lost 5 inches of height. He's figured out how to do it. Now, whether you figure out how to do that at the NFL level is a different thing. That's a whole different, it's that whole funnel. You got hundreds of thousands of kids in high school, funnel down to thousands of kids in college, funnel down to hundreds of people at the NFL level. Can he do that? Can he see over DeJuan Jones when he has to throw the ball? Can he see? But he made it work in college, so should be a reasonable expectation he can figure it out, at the pro level. And we'll see, how it goes in the preseason. But I don't see Flacco making it through a 17-game season at this age. No. But I don't know if the team and the fans have the stomach for 17 games of Kenny Pickett. So I think at some point you're going to see one of the rookies. And I think that's where kind of thinking about trying to figure out which one to put out there and how long to put out there is probably going to be the bigger puzzle, as opposed to when do we pull the trigger and put a rookie out there.
It's going to be very tricky for sure. I think it's going to be the main topic of conversation for Browns fans
for
the entire season for sure. And I agree with you. Joe Flacco hasn't had a full game, a full season since 2017 with the Ravens. So, I mean, it's not going to happen now. He's just getting older. I mean, it's not who he is. It's not going to happen. He can't sustain it for that long. He turns the ball over too much. Like, there's going to be a natural progression from Joe to one of the rookies at some point. And I agree with you 100%. I've been saying the same thing about Dylan Gabriel since we drafted him. You know, people are saying, well, he can't play because of his height and all this stuff. And maybe not in the NFL, but I've made the same argument to people that he's been that 10.5, 5'11", whatever he is, for a long time now. And he's played at that high level at that height. So he can clearly navigate throwing windows. He clearly understands the offense. He can, break a huddle. He can direct people at the line of scrimmage. He can process pre-snap. Like, he's got all those things. He's got all the things the Browns said they wanted, and they identified him as their guy, and they got him. So I do think that he'll be, and Blake, the other host on our show here, has said multiple times, he will be given every chance to fail before they give Shedeur a higher chance to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing it'll be interesting too, and I haven't really seen anybody talk about this, is the fact that Gabriel's left-handed. And that, to me, that flips the entire offense. All of a sudden now, Conklin's your blind side versus Jones. The ball comes out of his hand different. So I don't know. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's not a big deal for the receivers. Maybe it's not a big deal for the line. Maybe it's just, you still have to block. You still have to run the route. But it'll be interesting at some point during training camp in the preseason if something comes out or somebody does ask the question of, do you have to operate differently if he's in the game versus a right-handed quarterback? And maybe in 2025, it's not a big deal.
Well, and I guess we could always go back to, and I love that question. I might go back and read some Atlanta Falcons things from last year, because they went from right-handed Kirk Cousins to left-handed Michael Penix Jr., during the season. So I wonder if there were any articles, published by any Falcons writers saying, hey, the coaches have said this, or there's a difference here. I'd be interested to see how that went for them. And I guess the Dolphins did the same thing, going from Tua to all their backup quarterbacks last year, from a lefty to righties. So I guess maybe there is a little precedent for that.
Yeah, and like I said, maybe it's not as big of a deal as you think it'd be. It could be the new left tackle, right tackle. I play right tackle. It's super easy to play left tackle, and then all the linemen come on and say it's really not that simple, but fans think it's simple. So maybe it's another case of that where I'm overcomplicating it.
Yeah, very, very possible. Very possible. So I guess before we wrap this thing up here, you've already kind of alluded to not a strong belief that the Browns are going to be all that great this year.
Oh, 14-3. Lock it.
Okay, all right.
Come on.
I'll take
so
it.
You look at it. You split the division games. I mean, there's no reason they can't. They've been. This is the thing, and I wish I had thought of it as far as I would have got the exact numbers. If you just go back under Stefanski, they've been. They owned the Bengals when Baker was here. It's kind of tipped a little bit back on the Bengals side. They generally can split with Pittsburgh, no matter who's playing quarterback, especially at home. And they've been able to hang with Baltimore. So you split the division games. You kind of take advantage of those other last place teams, pick up a cheap win here and there, and all of a sudden, you're like at 9-10 wins. Come on.
Yeah, we've been wondering if it's not going to be, a lot of people think, 2 or 3 wins is the most. We have such a strong defense, and we've seen what now last year was a total joke with the Ken Dorsey stuff, but with Kevin Stefanski running the show, he can get pretty good results out of just basic competent quarterback play, like just your absolute league average quarterback play. With this defense, with Jim Schwartz and everything, like they could put up 7-8 wins, I think. Maybe push for a little more if things start to go well, if they win some close games, if a couple calls go their way, kind of like they did in 2023. But then again, on the other side of things, if things go against us or we have a couple penalties at the wrong time, I mean, the 49ers make a field goal instead of miss one at the end of a game. Football, especially at the NFL level, it is truly a game of inches. I mean, I think the average margin of victory is like 3.5 points or something like that. It's about a field goal.
It's pretty tight.
It's tight, and most games are one-score games, so the Browns are going to have to find ways to win those close games if they want to have that 500 or, maybe even above 500 record this year.
Sure. And this is the time of year to be optimistic. Why be negative now? We got plenty of time from September to December to be negative. But that's the thing. If the defense can they don't have to go back to being like a top 3 defense. They just have to go back to not being an incompetent defense. Play well, but the offense has to do its part. All these 3 and outs, all these turnovers. I mean, it did wear down and kill the defense. But now you got if the offensive line can stay healthy, they can revert to having a pro power running game where it's predominantly running the ball. They have 2 rookie running backs. These guys should have no problem finding success. You just pound the ball on that, hold on to the ball, limit how many times the opposing offense has it, pass when you have to, and we're back to Marty ball in the mid 80s. And that worked. Now, can that work in today's NFL? Yeah, probably not long term. Can it work for a good chunk of this season? Maybe. Stop with the pick sixes, which, I was going to say, they don't have Winston anymore, but they got Flacco back. And, so
he's good at that too.
But at least he's better than Winston. He's less irritating than Winston. But that's the thing, control the ball, just get everybody calmed down, take a couple of shots here and there. Judy should be fine. I think the receivers have the potential to be better than they were last year and a little better than people are expecting them to be. But a lot of that hinges on Tillman staying healthy and, showing that production he had last year was not a fluke. But whether the other wide receivers pan out or not, Deontay Johnson, some of these other younger guys, that may not matter as much because you still got Njoku. You got the tight end they just drafted from Bowling Green,
Fannin,
whose name is, So all of a sudden now those guys, and then they've been talking about Dylan Sampson, how he can operate out of the slot and how he can work, catching the ball in the backfield. And you got the kid from Kent State who's, getting some attention as a potential slot receiver. So I think they can build a functional offense, out of those guys. And the passing game might be better than people are expecting it to be. So you put all those things together and let's see what they can do. You walk out of September 0-4, and as you're getting on the plane to go to London, that's going to be a little bit rough, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot more optimism, me personally, for just the week 1 opening game in Cleveland against the Bengals. Because like you said, it wasn't even just under Baker. It's pretty much under Kevin since he's been here. I throw last year out because to me that was, they took Kevin out of the equation and you saw what happened. Kevin back leading the team, leading the offense, doing his thing. I mean, he has pretty much had the Bengals number. And, in Cleveland, I just remember back in 2023, it wasn't even a contest. We dominated them from start to finish. And, as long as we come out of training camp and preseason relatively healthy, I don't see why our defense doesn't stifle the Bengals offense enough. They always start out the gate every season slow anyway. And their defense isn't really much to speak of. So with Joe Flacco, if he is the starter, I think there's a good chance we come out, start the season 1-0.
I think so. Like I said, this is the time for optimism, but there's some reality to that optimism too. There's, like we said, the one Bengal game, I think, you got to throw the one out last year because they were starting, Jeff Driscoll or whatever. Maybe that was 2 years ago. It kind of all blends together. So, but they play them tough, and we'll see. We'll see what they can do.
We will. Absolutely. Well, Tom, I'll get you out of here. I really do appreciate you jumping on here, doing the podcast with me, just breaking down some of the realities, the myths, all this stuff about the stadium, and then just talking Browns football with me for a little bit here. So I appreciate that very much. If you guys want to follow Tom and his work, head over to dogsbynature.com, look him up. Are you on Twitter? Are you on X?
Yes.
Okay, what's your handle?
Tom_Redright88.
Okay, so go check him out. Give him a follow. Great stuff here. And if you guys got any questions or anything more, drop them in the comments. Maybe we'll get Tom back on here at a later date just to continue to update us as this stadium project moves along. But for Tom, for myself, we will see you guys in the next episode. Let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.
This episode is sponsored by Southern New Hampshire University. Browns fans, I can't tell you guys how many people I've known over the years who have missed out on job opportunities simply because they don't have the right degree or even have a degree at all. I mean, these are people who otherwise would have been perfect for the position they wanted, but they got turned away simply because of educational requirements. If you've ever felt stuck in a job you didn't enjoy, or you felt unqualified or unable to advance your career due to your lack of education or experience, heck, maybe you even have a degree, but now you feel like you chose the wrong major, Southern New Hampshire University could be the answer for you. Go to snhu.edu/bark, B-A-R-K, to learn how you can get started today. SNHU has programs in psychology, cybersecurity, computer science, sports management, game development, data analytics, and finance. SNHU is one of the largest online accredited universities in the United States, and their programs are radically affordable. Their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. And you might even be eligible for financial aid or have prior college credits that could fast track your degree at SNHU. And because networking is everything, your courses are taught by faculty with real world experience, so you'll have opportunities to connect with people inside the industry. And then when you graduate, SNHU will still be there to help you as you begin your job search. So if you're ready for something new, head over to snhu.edu/bark and learn how you can get started working toward your new career today.